Well, Sibiya is also alleged to have links to criminal syndicates that have infiltrated the SAPS, including the controversial tenderpreneur Vusimuzi Matlala, who, by the way, is currently in prison, being held there on a charge of attempted murder after he tried to kill his girlfriend. Let's talk further then about the dynamics that we're dealing with in the last 9 days or so. Bring in the Director of Research at ASRI, Angelo Fick. Angelo, always good to have you on SABC News. So as far as national crises or difficult times go, especially for law enforcement in this country, how serious or how trying a time is this?
Good evening, Dimikisha. I think there are some questions that we have to have around the phrasing that we're hearing coming from both the President as well as the National Police Commissioner on the status of, one, changes in cabinet, and two, what is happening to the Deputy Commissioner. The Democratic Alliance has already indicated that they have concerns that this is a leave of absence and not a clearly indicated disciplinary process, and want to know under what code of conduct for the SABC. And so I think we're in a space where these are very serious allegations, and not just against the individuals concerned, but allegations that call into question functioning of the state at some of the most crucial levels in a country where all 62 plus million of us have been complaining about the levels of criminality, the levels of non-safety in our communities, and the concerns around corruption of state institutions and processes.
And on the issue of the language used, right, in Senzo Mkhunu and Shadrack Sibiya stepping away from their roles, the issue of a leave of absence has come out, as you were saying, as one of the more controversial ones. I wonder if that is an indication, or can be read as an indication, of how seriously the President takes the allegations against them, or is it really, where the Minister is concerned, a political bow, a cute little political bow put on the moment to sort of shield Mkhunu from full-on scrutiny based on the allegations?
So in the case of the President using the phrase acting minister, and there are questions about whether or not one can appoint an acting minister from outside cabinet, or whether you have to take the acting role to another member of cabinet, and, you know, Professor Kachalia would have to be appointed as a full minister from outside cabinet. That's something for legal minds to split hairs about. I think the question that we have at the moment is, if there is currently no police minister because Minister Mkhunu has been placed on special leave and is no longer serving in cabinet, who is the Minister of Police at the moment? Because we've been told on Sunday night that Professor Kachalia will only be able to take over in August, and Mr. Ramaphosa will appoint somebody to act in the meanwhile for the last 2 weeks of July. That announcement has not come through. We're at the end of Tuesday, and so really too much time has passed for this crucial portfolio. The President's use of the phrase acting in the press briefing may in fact have been a slip, but we're waiting to hear for clarification from the Presidency whether they in fact mean that Minister Kachalia or Professor Kachalia will be the acting minister, or will in fact be the police minister as of 1st of August.
And it then raises questions, Angelo, about the understanding perhaps by the President or his team of the need to communicate clearly on these issues, or just what the technicalities would entail to have sort of put together this workaround while Mkhunu takes this leave of absence to bring in Professor Kachalia. Because if there are still grey areas regarding whether due process was followed or whether the process in its entirety so far has been a legitimate one, it could present a problem with the likes of the MKP already threatening to go to court.
Well, the concern that one has as an ordinary person who lives in this country is 8 days had passed between the allegations on that Sunday and the President's announcement yesterday. There are rumours flying around that he approached Professor Kachalia an hour before the announcement. My question is, surely in those 8 days, the internal party mechanisms will have been consulted and dealt with. The President had ample time to consult as President of the ANC with the NEC or the NWC and his top 6 officials about how to proceed with a senior member of the ANC under these allegations. As for how government T's need to be crossed and I's need to be dotted, the question that one has is for people inside the union buildings who drafted some of these statements, whether they were careful enough with the phrasing to make sure that there wouldn't be these kinds of maneuvers and questions that we see from opposition parties and even from partners inside the coalition government. For the Democratic Alliance to be making that statement on its website suggests that there wasn't necessarily the clearinghouse that we have been told should exist inside the GNU coalition between the partners informing one another and being informed by the President for what they're doing.
And one of the things said today at the Hands Off Mkhwanazi march in Durban, where the MKP was the largest political player, there were other organizations as well, as I understand it. In the handing over of the memorandum, it was said the president is basically being given a deadline of a couple of days to get rid of Minister Mkhunu, essentially fire him altogether. And the gentleman who was doing the reading then said, if that deadline is not met, there will be a day of protest. But then he went on to basically say that once we reach that point, they will not be in control of what happens post that point. And it makes you wonder whether that was a veiled threat. Is it cause for concern?
Well, we cannot have a repeat of the events of July 2021. People cannot be threatening the state with instability. A legal process has been instituted, and it's important for us to follow that legal process. We may disagree with the speed and what will be delivered by this legal process, but to suggest that there will be extra legal measures if the president does not follow our instructions is not a useful way to proceed in a democratic state. The president should be accountable to us. We have structures. MK is the official opposition in Parliament. They have the right to ask the president written questions. Parliament has the right to call the president into their chambers to answer questions. There are all sorts of ways in which the Legislative Assembly should be able to hold the executive to account without threatening us with potential unknown consequences that suggest that people who are organizing marches will not be responsible for what the people on those marches may be doing later. I think these vague threats or vague suggestions that processes may proceed beyond our control is disingenuous politics, and it's not the way in which a democratic state, which has functions that are challenging, should be functioning in relation to its citizens or in relation to political parties that have representation in Parliament.
And what do you make, Angelo, just lastly, about the Mkhwanazi party basically asserting or positioning itself as Mkhwanazi's perhaps biggest political defender publicly? What's in it for the party? Is it similar to the battles waged, for example, by the DA and the EFF on issues of state capture, the Nhlanhla debacle, etc.? Or is there more to it?
It is possible that the MK party has chosen this to be their equivalent of pay back money, which is protect Mkhwanazi. It is also possible that Mkhwanazi is seen as a KwaZulu-Natal man, and the MK party's power base being there, this will become a rallying point for them by getting these crowds out and pointing out to some of what they see as the inconsistencies in the governing coalition, and particularly inside the African National Congress. But I think it is important for us to recognize there is a legitimate legal process in place. Members of the MK party who serve in Parliament and various legislatures around the country have taken an oath of office to stand by the Constitution, and it now becomes the duty of all members of Parliament, all members of legislative assemblies, to take that oath seriously and to hold the executive to account. And that includes all party members across party divisions in the National Assembly, the NCOP, and the various provincial legislatures. We cannot have a situation where people choose extrajudicial means to find ways of getting their own way when they don't like the slowness of the legitimate judicial process that is now underway.
Angelo Fick, always a pleasure to speak to you. Angelo is the Director of Research at ASRI.